Hello and welcome to Frank's School. It's daytime, so the light surely is different. 149th day of the 5th year of Frank's School, first video. I have today and tomorrow left in these prequels to an itinerary for a trip to Portugal and the Alps. But I should say immediately to anybody who's been following this, if there is anybody, I'm not going in 2017. My health is not good enough. Until I get my heart straightened up, its tendency to race and get rid of the lightheadedness. And money's a factor too, and other things. My daughter's going to have her first child in end of March, and so I was going to go in March anyway. So that's out, but I'm still going to describe the trip in great detail, maybe even more detail, which I recommend to you, and maybe me some other year, I don't know. Anyway, on this day, I had described, Chamonix is the little town below Mont Blanc that I couldn't think of it. I looked it up and found it. Andermatt is the logical place to stay after you've gone over the Prequel Pass. So, and I wasn't sure whether it was probably Hospital. It was probably where we stayed tonight. But anyway, the next day, and Joyce and I were covering a lot of ground pretty fast. We didn't have a lot of time, but I wanted to see the Alps. Well, we drove down to Andermatt and then turned down the Schoellenen Gorge. I'd never heard of it. At this point, I was just heading towards Zurich because that's where we were going to turn the car in. Well, that was an unforgettable drive. And even though it's 46 years ago, I still have this faint memory of driving down this road and going right up against sheer granite cliffs and think, what in the world is this? I'd never been on a road anything like it. Lots of images online of it. If you would put down Teufelsbruecke images in Google Earth, Google that, you will find lots of images of a very famous bridge. That stands for Devil's Bridge. I thought I would show you this book that I got at a later time. That means Alpine Passes, the Alp Passes. And there's a couple of pictures in here I wanted to show you. I got this in Lucerne once. I mean, that's what the traffic looks like driving up one of the passes in the middle of a summer. We didn't have anything like that. But here's the a painting of the Devil's Bridge, Teufelsbruecke. And this was probably my most memorable picture in this whole book, to give you some idea of the engineering. If you look below that bridge, way down there, or that road, you can see a town. And then finally, here's another image of the Devil's Bridge. But if you would go online, you would see much more images. And I'm sure on YouTube there's lots of people filming driving down through there. I was through there. There's a good bit more I could tell you about the Devil's Bridge. I guess I'll just tell you this. That here's a children's book called The Schmied von Goechenen, a children's book about the building of that bridge when it was first done, in German. You won't be able to find it. I was very happy to get it from a Swiss friend of mine. Her mother saw to it that I could get a copy of that, her mother, who was a teacher. Anyway, we drove down through, we got to Brunnen, I think. Once again, I mean, this was so fast, I didn't know the names at the time, but when we finally got into Brunnen, that's the first time I really had the feeling I'm in a town that sort of looks like I imagine a German town or a Swiss town to look. Then we must have turned to the right and gone over and went down into Zurich, which is a city, and for me, the sooner I get out of it, the better, just because it was a city. Turned the car in, and it must have been the same day, because we did not stay overnight in Zurich. Turned the car in, went down to the train station, and caught the train to Innsbruck. I'll say it in English. And that train ride was one of these formative events for me. And it was really when I realized only within the last year what that train ride was, that you could go from Zurich to Innsbruck without going into Germany, I realized that's the route that I took. And what was so formative about it was as we got into Austria, and the Arlberg Pass is what it goes over. On YouTube, people ride it, they film it so you can see it. But I saw for the first time these farmhouses, Bauernhäuser, for the first time, and I saw them again and again and again, and I saw the way they were built onto the mountainside. With the back of it, toward the mountain was the barn with the hay, the animals underneath it, and the front, down toward the valley, was where people lived, quite narrow. And it was looking north along the north wall of the valley that I was so impressed. And of course the sunlight from the south would go into all these windows. It was my first look at those kind of houses, I'll call them. And it was formative because, well, I'll tell you a little bit more about it tomorrow. Because here we're beautiful, modern in the, well, they're hundreds of years old, but I mean, they were current. People were living in them, and even new ones would be built in the same style. But the style was that under one huge roof, up against the mountainside, was a single building that included barn and house. Barn at the back, house at the front, animals underneath, under one huge roof. I had never seen anything like that before. And well, I guess I knew they existed because I'd read the tour books to get ready for that trip. That was formative, seeing those. All right, I guess I'm kind of brief today, but I'll have a little bit more to say about that tomorrow. Bye for now.